everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ljubljana Talks. And we are here live at IMEX 2024, and with Gorazd we have another amazing guest, Bettina Reventlow-Mourier, with us from of course everybody knows her, but Copenhagen CVB, a pure legend of the industry. There you are. After all this time, we're really happy to have you. And really excited. I can say that from the standpoint of a convention bureau, we always look up to you guys and with admiration. And I'm gonna start with a question. How do you manage to be such a great CVB?
Well, thank you for that introduction, and thank you very, very much for the invitation to come and speak. And I don't know if we're a great CVB, but we're certainly a CVB where there's an amazing team and a great leadership in a beautiful city. And we have a very sort of collaborative approach to everything we do. So we do this, I mean, we don't own anything ourselves. So we need to not only stay ahead of the game and at the forefront of innovation or new technologies or new products, also being a relatively small destination, but we have to do it together. So, and having that mindset around keeping innovation at the forefront and iterating the things that we do, hopefully we're staying top of the game and staying relevant for all our many stakeholders.
Hold the mic a little bit closer because there's a lot of noise.
Great.
Well, why do you think, Bettina, Denmark is so innovative? What is the reason that Lego comes from Denmark? Motivation was developed in Denmark. Meeting architecture was developed there. And many, many other things. What would you say? Is this because of Hygge or?
Well, we must be incredibly bored. I mean, we obviously have to invent something new all the time. But I mean, we're very playful, actually. So that could be one of the answers. You were mentioning Lego. So innovating through play is something we do not only with our children, but also something we do when we are adults. We are often exploring sort of new creative ways of going about things, asking questions, and maybe it's because we have a very open communication with our parents, with our peers, with our, there's freedom of speech. So there is a trust in the fact that when you're asking questions or when you're trying to develop something new, that you can do it together, either in a playful setting or by using research and processes and innovation tools to actually create new ways of doing it. So I think it also comes from curiosity. How can we do this better or in a different way? Maybe we're just lazy. If it's too complicated, it takes too long, then maybe we can do it in a different way. And I think also as a country, we have a very flat hierarchy. So there is not far from high-level leadership down to people working on the ground. Mm-hmm. And I think that also creates some great dynamics in innovating or even just, changing small things, making incremental changes or business developments.
We saw a lot of open code materials on Copenhagen Legacy Lab website. Is this also part of the story that you share everything, what you know and what you figure out as an innovation?
It is actually in general. We firmly believe that by sharing, you're also being given a lot back. And we also firmly believe that, all right, so maybe it was, we were inventing this new framework around legacy, and we're really, really proud of it. So yes, we could potentially have a competitive edge for a short while. But we're working with long-term positive impact. When you're working with long-term positive impact, you want to get everybody else on board. And it was not as if we were the first ones in that space. There were lots of other things going on parallel with that. But we found that, we had invented something great and a great set of tools. But if that was going to contribute to the transformation of our business, if that was going to inspire others, not only our clients, but also our stakeholders and also our friends in the other destinations, we had to put it out there. So also by putting it out there, We are helping accelerate that transformation. We're helping to create demand, but we're also getting other eyes on our innovation or on our tools. So that also helps us to further develop it. And it's much more fun having a discussion together and to collaborate on things than just sitting it on, behind closed doors.
I can say that your lecture at the ICA Congress in Bangkok left a very interesting and, in context of what you're saying, a very deep impression on me. Because you were talking about risk and risk assessment, and for CVBs and for destinations, risk is something we often try to not think about. It's all great, there's no risk. But I think how you presented it and the numbers and the ideas behind it were really deep. Can you tell us quickly about what's behind that?
Yes, of course I can. I'm very happy to. It really sort of came out of Corona. I think it was evident to all of us that during the pandemic we found ourselves in a situation where it was a lose-lose game. So with all the events being cancelled or moved, contracts being scrutinized, there was financial viability at stake. Some could even potentially go bankrupt. There was not only a lot of negotiation in that space around how do we find a common solution, but there was also a complete lack of taxonomy. I mean, a common language around risk. What is risk to the individual actor in that ecosystem? So for venues, it would be one thing. For hotels, it would be another. For the associations or large corporates, it would be yet another one. And destinations were sitting there in the middle of it all and thinking how we're trying to handle reputational risk. So we wanted in Copenhagen to try and explore what is risk in the ecosystem and how can we get a new conversation going around this. If we all want to mitigate risk in our business structures. We all want to understand what risks are there, which ones are the highest prioritized, which ones are the most likely ones to happen. But we also want to try and find out, is there a space here if we understand what risk is to everybody? If there potentially is some best practices around this, can we together, again we're talking about the collaborative effort, can we as an industry together find either a new business model or some tools around risk, develop common framework around it, or even, and that's probably the most difficult thing, is to find out how do we risk share in the future. So that was what the white paper was all about, and we are embarking on a version 2.0. So we are moving from, that was the assessment, this is what it showed us. We are waiting excitedly for another report coming out. There's a different player in our ecosystem who's working on a great piece of work. Once that comes, we will of course align, but then we need to look at how can we then make this more tangible? How can we make this more operational? How can we develop some tools that are relevant for everyone?
And you touched upon so many things that, my brain is going everywhere. But there is one word that you said that I think has been really resonating in the industry in the last couple of days, and actually longer, and that's taxonomy. We use terminology in a way that we have not agreed upon. I mean, we never have even had that conversation properly. And I think that is actually connected with certain risks. How do you view our issues of defining what we do, a part of the risk where we are?
Well, of course there is a risk, because when you're talking two different languages and you're having abbreviations, I mean, just ask my husband. He says, when I speak to industry friends, I speak a different language. All of those abbreviations, he's thinking, what are you talking about? And what we need to be aware of is that we have our own little closed system of understanding each other because we've been in the game for so long. But the new people in the industry, there is a risk there that they might not understand or may even misunderstand what some of these things are all about or what we are all about and what we're working with. And equally bad is what about our stakeholders who invest in what we do but do not work with what we do on a daily basis? So when we need to speak to politicians, and we all know that they change frequently, so it's the same song, but if we can all agree on a narrative, but if we can't make ourselves understandable, we may not be viewed as relevant, or they may not understand the return on investment, and as a consequence, there might be a lack of financing or investment in what we do. Also for other actors around that ecosystem, not only politicians, but also organizations, academia, clusters, innovations hub, and so on, if they can't see themselves in what we do and the relevance of what we do to accelerate their business development, or even how they achieve their strategies, we won't be able to create those partnerships and that collaboration, which is so absolutely essential for us in moving forward. And talking about the title of the session here, Responsible Industry Evolution, we are responsible ourselves for that narrative and being clear on that narrative. And yes, there are still different narratives out there, but I think there is an awareness that we need to be precise. And I think there are many organizations in our industry now who are increasingly speaking together about narrowing that down. It'd be interesting. So maybe you will invent a new word for MICE, or are we called business events or meeting industry, or are we tourism, or what are we? I think we probably need to agree on that ourselves.
I absolutely agree with everything what you said. We need to find the new word, yes, or reinvent ourselves somehow. But are we now better industry after the COVID? What do you think?
Sorry?
Are we better now after the COVID? I expected more, maybe, or you expected more.
Yeah. I mean, talk about clear communication. Yeah. What is better to you?
I mean, for me, it's better that we organize events which are not so harmful for environment, society, and participants.
And I totally agree.
Yeah.
And in that space, I really think that there is a whole new level of awareness about what is critical and what we need to do. I think the whole sort of sustainable, not necessarily sustainability strategies, but sustainable strategies, where we're not only talking about reducing emissions, we're not only talking about climate, but we're really talking about responsible business. So that covers many different agendas, and I think there is not only a greater awareness of it, but it's also accelerated through regulation, new frameworks, new demands in different parts of the industry. So in that sense, I think COVID made it very clear, and talk about better, made it very clear that yes, we can have meetings virtually, but meeting in person will continue to be extremely important. And we understand much better that enormous importance for human beings to be physically near each other in communication, in building trust, in creating partnerships and collaborating around projects. And also the fact that human health and planetary health are completely interconnected. So that we must, as an industry, because we do have a massive footprint, we have an obligation to make sure that we minimize that footprint and that we come up with either new technologies to solve some of this or new business models to do this. So to go back to your question, I think we're in a better place because we're far more aware of it, and there's a far greater willingness to find solutions individually and together.
Another question from my side. Impact, legacy, regeneration. What does it mean to you? Can you explain the difference? This is the buzzword of these 3 days. We are talking just about that. Almost all our guests use these 3 words in a different context. So can you help us a little bit to understand these 3 words better?
I can indeed, and that's a long narrative really, but I'll try to keep it very, very short. I mean, as you may know, we developed Copenhagen Legacy Lab. So we decided quite early on that legacy was an important word for us to use. And I know that there are very different opinions on this. Legacy to us, and legacy and impact, both are part of our framework. Legacy to us is still, leaving a positive footprint and handprint from the events that we have. It's a long-term positive impact that we're trying to create from the events that we have. So impact is a very correct word to use also when you're talking, for example, it sits within the EU framework for impact. But we divide actually the different words, and they're connected to how we measure. So when you have an activity, you measure the immediate output. So an output is, for example, how many people came to that activity, or how many people saw that particular campaign. The outcome of that is, well, if that output created a change performance or increased performance, or then you can say it's an outcome. And if that if that improved performance or changed behavior resulted in something that benefits society, then you have an impact. And for us, if that impact leads back to where we strategically started, you have a legacy. So impact can be both a short-term impact. Absolutely, and they iterate each other. So the impact is a very correct word to use in both a short-term impact and a long-term impact within a framework. But legacy has a different connotation to impact, and which I think is equally important. Legacy, to us at least, not only does it sit within our framework and leads back to the strategic objective, but it also has a connotation of a longevity, something that is really long-lasting, something where there's a human connection, something where there is a purposefulness around it that is driven also by human visions. So it adds, in our opinion, some extra layers to that. So to us, impact and legacy are like ebony and ivory on a piano. Live together perfect in harmony.
Now we have audience. We have a definition now. So
that was putting in some Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney quotations there. Known scientists in this topic. So you said the human touch, the human connection. How does then AI and everything that is now entering our industry and our work labor processes, how do we include AI into this? Or how are you doing it perhaps already?
Well, AI is fascinating, exciting, poses loads of opportunities for us. And there's also another side of AI that we need to be really, really aware of. And it doesn't only have to do with human touch. I think it gives us, and it's still relatively early days, but it gives us some fantastic opportunities, not only as destinations, but everybody, to work faster, to get extra layers of knowledge and perspectives, to enhance creativity of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. It can, right down to very simple things in our workspace. For example, doing resumes, converting interviews into podcasts. It can write emails for you. It can do presentations for you. It can comment on reflections that we have, and it obviously draws on enormous sets of databases. So great opportunities there. We need to, obviously, there is an interesting element in this that requires some upskilling, development in not necessarily changing the workforce we have, but making sure that they're skilled to do the prompting correctly, but also that they remain critical to what we get back from various AI platforms. For example, we had a massive report that came out not that long ago. So we used an AI platform to say, could you please extract all the key points in this particular report? Came back, was fantastic and was super fast, but some of it was wrong. So how do you make sure that it didn't make up something? So how many resources are you going to be using to making sure that the information that's coming out is actually correct? So will it replace humans? No. Will it be a great assistant? Absolutely. And it's fascinating what it can also do. But we need that human intervention, both with AI but also with each other. And then there's the scary side of AI. And you are such sustainability champions. You know, AI is awesome. We're not really talking very much about that. There is a massive use of water. There's a massive use of energy when you're using AI. So it shouldn't just be a playground for us to use without actually thinking of the negative impact, the emissions that they have, or the strain that it has on our planetary resources when we're using that. So use it wisely. Make sure also, and I think we have a collective responsibility here, there are so many biases out there, and AI is also built on biases. Mm-hmm. And new platforms are being created with different kinds of biases. And I think not just in our industry, in general, we need to be really, really careful that we are not building new silos through AI by not even being aware of those non-confirmed biases. So I think it's a discussion we, both as an industry but also on a global scale, need to have.
You are the happiest nation. Dance. How you measure that? What is actually... How you measure happiness?
Well, I actually think the Finnish are the happiest people in the world at the moment, but we are jolly cheerful too, and always at the top of that index. And we don't do the measurement. There's a happiness index that do that. And what the reasons for us being so happy? Well, I don't think there is sort of a research answer to that. So this is,
no science,
I'm accountable for what comes out now. But I actually think, one, we have a stable country, both a politically stable country, but also a financially stable country. We have a very homogeneous population. And we have a population where there are very, very few people that are very rich and very, very few people that are very poor. Mm-hmm. And an enormous middle class. We are actually, and one shouldn't think that, we're quite happy paying our taxes. We're happy paying them as long as they're invested into something that's really, really important to us. And that is, one, health. Mm-hmm. So equal health for all. We're not born with the same health. Some people are really unfortunate. The fact that you have a society that all put money in a pot so that you're sure that everybody gets the help that they need, I think that is incredibly important. And the schooling system. The fact that all have equal access to education and free education, not only in public school, but also in high school and at university level. So right through to your master degree, it's financed. And then we have, I mentioned that earlier in the interview, we have a very flat hierarchy. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a wonderful thing in terms of everybody being heard, everybody having a voice, people being respected, that there is a good two-way communication. So, yes, as a country, stability, economic stability, feeling safe as a human being in our country and with each other.
It's a very good point.
And then, of course, there is hygge, which you never must underestimate in a country where, 4 months of the year are really dark and wintry.
Yeah, I understand the logic here. But Eurocentric view is that we are in the center of the planet still, especially in this industry. Are we still there, or what is happening, by your opinion? Well, are we still number one in the world, actually, as an industry? Can you comment that a little
That's
bit?
a great question, and I think if you look at a world map, sometimes we're in the center of the world, but if you ask the other side of the globe what the globe looks like, they're right in the center as well. So, Europe obviously is a very, very strong player in the business event industry. I think we account for approximately 51% of the revenues generated from the business events industry. So still a strong economy. The latest report that I read, there's an expected growth of about 10% towards 2030. But that also goes for other regions. And we have other regions that are doing incredibly well. We have Asia Pacific. They are really growing. There is a growing middle class, but there is also an enormous acceleration in not only the understanding of technology, but in the development of new technologies, in creating smart cities. I actually think they're much further ahead than we are in Europe. and they're doing really, really well. So have a look out for Asia, and also make sure that we help each other to play each other better in that context. The Gulf region has invested massively in knowledge, in association meetings, in major events in the last years, and are a very significant player as well. And of course, the US is still a very strong player as well. So, and across the globe, if you look at how revenues are going to be increasing towards 2030, they are all, or we are all, at the same, approximately the same growth level. It's just different things that are being accelerated.
There are so many things I want to talk to you about right now, but we have a limited time. So, and we've been.
I'll be back tomorrow.
Okay. It's such a great conversation, and I think there's so many stuff, so many things we did not cover. We could go into association conversation, CTD&A, ICA. There's all these things that you are involved with, that you work with. You're, really involved all over the place. So before we go to the short questions that we always ask before we finish one of the Ljubljana Talks, I want to ask you about how do you see where we are going as an industry? Sitting here at IMEX, looking at this trade show, amazing trade show, huge, and we talked about where we are now, but how do you see the future?
Yeah, and it's a really, really good question, because what do we see? What kind of scenarios? And there are many scenarios down the road. I'll try and keep this a little bit short. So what do we see? It's a muddled picture, but I actually see quite a resilient business, and it's a people business, and it's a business that very much rely on interpersonal relations, and it's a really friendly business. We live from bringing people together. That will keep happening. We know that now, but there are different ways of doing it. And I think the way that we are going is we're still bringing people together, but we are far more aware of the fact that we have to bring people together in meetings that are valuable, where there are some outcomes and long-term positive impacts, but also some that do not harm our planet too much. In the ideal world, where do I hope we go? I hope we will be politically stable. I hope we will be happy moving forward in new collaborative partnerships and playing each other better. And I hope that we will also look at being more regenerative. So not only trying to just reduce our emissions, but actually also in a more circular way trying to give back to not only our industry, but the common planet we're part of.
Nice message to finish our discussion. Let me start with short questions. Cooking meal or eating meal? These are simple questions. Cooking meal or eating meal? What do you prefer? Cooking or eating?
Oh, that's a nasty question. But I'm a really both and lady. There's actually a great book that's written recently by a professor in America called Both And. I think the two for me are totally interconnected. It's not. I love cooking. I love the process of cooking. I love the camaraderie around cooking. I love the trying to tweak it every single time to come up with something new, and the revelations and the excitement when it actually succeeds. But there is something around, and I think that's fundamental for human beings, gathering around a table. We go thousands and thousands of years back. We're gathering around a table. This is where we have the conversation. So the meal is not only absolutely, and it's not only about food and the taste and the meal in itself, the nourishment, but it's about the spiritual conversations that potentially are also taking place. One doesn't go without the other. If I had to choose, I'd sit around the campfire and with my peers and my friends and my family and gathering, and feeling that I was part of a community.
I could say the meetings are in your blood.
Yeah.
Fire or ice?
Fire or ice? Fire, for sure. I don't know why, but I just think that's I feel I have it inside. Really, it's. I think it's really exciting. It's when man invented fire. That was also an accelerator for the human beings that we are today.
Bettina, thanks a lot for your great answers. It was an amazing Ljubljana talk. Thank you for your time. Stay tuned and power to the meetings. We are coming back in 5 minutes.